you're on.
All right. So good afternoon. I'm Mark Ireland. I'm the superintendent here at the Sicily-Rome American Cemetery and Memorial. I've been with the American Battle Monuments Commission, ABMC, since last May. Prior to that, I worked for about a little bit over a year with the Defense Logistics Agency, and before that, 30 years of service in the Army.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. One of the great things about the American Battle Monuments Commission is that we work to honor the service and sacrifice, especially the sacrifice of those who came before us. And so we have sites all over the world. In Italy, we have 2 sites. A lot of people don't know that we have 2 here in Italy. We're actually called Sicily-Rome because we include people who made the ultimate sacrifice from a few from Northern Africa that were pilots. But most of them were either involved in the landing and the fighting in Sicily, through the landings and fighting in Salerno in southern Italy, and going up against the Gustav Line, coming around, doing the end around to come to the landing here in Anzio and Nettuno. And then from there, after landing in January and June of 44, finally liberating Rome. It's only about 60 kilometers or just over 35 miles from here to Rome. So not very far, but it took that long to get there.
Wow. Yeah, I just came from Rome. It took me like about an hour. How long did it take them to get there?
Over 4 months.
Wow.
Over 4 months to get there. And the reason for that, is many. One is they were trying to get people up from the south through the defenses that the Nazis had, right? And so we always hear all roads lead to Rome, right? It's a common saying. But there were 2 roads that led to Rome from the south, and they both go through and around mountains. And so the Germans were in the high ground, dug in, entrenched. No precision bombing at the time that could move them out of there, and they could hold those mountain passes, and did hold them for a very long time until we finally, through attrition and adding more forces, we're finally able to break through. The same thing here at the beachhead, where ideally, the goal is to have a 4-to-1 superiority. They never had 4-to-1 superiority. Here, what we had is there were over 20 temporary cemeteries during the war, as they kind of moved slowly up through Sicily and then up the peninsula. After the war, every family had the choice to either bring their son or daughter home or to leave them in Italy. About 65% chose to bring their son or daughter home, and the other 35% to leave them here. In some cases, there was no next of kin to make that decision. In many cases, they wanted that loved one to be with their brothers and sisters in arms. And so that's part of the reason. There's also many missing in action. So here we actually have buried over 7,800 buried here, and then the 3,095 who are missing in action.
Wow.
Many of them are air crew, right? So there wasn't just the fighting on land and sea, but Italy was very important for strategic bombing. So from Italy on the east coast, on the Adriatic Sea, there's a series of military airports we collectively called the Foggia complex. And from those, they flew as far away into Romania to some of the oil fields and refineries that were there, flew all the way to Berlin. So we know, based on there was no in-air refueling at the time.
Yeah, I'm a flight engineer in the United States Air Force.
Yeah,
so I'm an air crew. Yeah, I was air crew at 25 years. Yeah.
Right, and so there was just they were pushing the aircraft to the limit of their capabilities, and then for those who weren't in the Air Force, and if you've seen some a show like Masters of the Air,
yes,
right, then the difficulty that those aircrew had.
No pressurization, below 30 degrees, yeah.
Temperatures. So, for example, I remember reading the story of one of the gunners who hit by flak or enemy aircraft strafing them, loses oxygen. Right, and they're at altitude, and he dies from asphyxiation because he couldn't breathe, not because he was killed some other way. So there's many stories like that.
Can I just interject? There's another story that I heard too from actual pilots that flew there, that they actually got hit by flak and they were bleeding out, but it was so cold that the blood froze. Yeah.
Yeah, that's also the case. It's just, it's amazing. And then, many stories of heroism across all the services. And so many, one of the things that we really try hard to do here is to share those stories, right? Through whether it's local Italians that are coming through, school-age kids, university kids, family members, is to help them understand that sacrifice that was made, those young men and women knowing that they were putting their lives at risk willingly for our futures, right? For the world that we have today.
Right.
And so telling those stories, so when someone comes and asks me, are there really people buried here, right? And we tell them that there are. And they start to make that physical connection and emotional connection to understand the cost of freedom,
Sure.
right? And so it's a very powerful place, and telling the stories is one of the best ways that we have to do that here.
I also went to Casino, and I think I saw a cemetery there, American cemetery, and I think Poland cemetery, and I think the Germans had theirs too.
So in the Casino area, that's right along the Gustav line, right? And so Casino is a city that's a little bit lower on the hill. Monte Cassino is up on the top of the mountain, right? It was a famous 12th century abbey is there. So in Casino there is a Polish cemetery. It was there were 4 battles for that area, 4 major battles. The very first one involved the Nisei, so the Japanese Americans. They actually were able to get up more than halfway up the mountain, but didn't go further because the people on their left and their right weren't able to progress. And when they finally did break through, it was at Casino itself, it was the Poles that were going through. So the Poles have a big cemetery memorial in that area.
Yeah.
The Brits also have a cemetery near Casino. Then the Germans do a little bit further away. Mm-hmm. The Americans had a cemetery, a temporary cemetery in the area. But after the war, after families made their decision about taking their son or daughter home, the decision was made to consolidate the locations here, either in Nettuno, as this was the largest temporary cemetery in Italy.
I'm sorry, how is this name pronounced of this area?
Nettuno.
And what does that mean?
It means Neptune.
Oh, like King Neptune of the ocean?
Yes, the King of Neptune of the ocean. So if you go to the local town here, there's a big fountain and statue of Neptune.
Nettuno.
Right, so Nettuno. And then it's also called Anzio because at one point they were the same city, and then at some point they divided the names. And Anzio is where the port is, but most of the port was taken by Rangers. But most of the ships, the LSTs that were unloading troops during the landing.
LSTs?
Yeah. So
what does that stand for?
Landing ship tank.
Oh, okay.
Right. Then there were LCRs, or I don't remember what that one stands for, but there are different types of landing ships.
Got it.
And so they, many of them went on the beaches here in the Nettuno area. Mm-hmm. So it's about a 6 kilometer, 3.5 mile wide area that they were unloading troops, equipment, material.
Question: why did the Americans choose to land here? What was strategic about it?
So it was on the other side of the defenses for where the Gustav line was. It was close to Rome, right? So it had access to railroad and roads that would take you up towards Rome as well. What they hadn't really planned for was how rapidly the Germans would respond, not understanding that the German defenses, rather than being here at the beach, were up in the hills on the high ground again, and that they had zeroed in on the area on the beach, so it was under attack by artillery. They actually had a very large one that was on a train that they would take into a tunnel to hide and bring it out and shoot. In the initial weeks, it was also hit heavily by the Luftwaffe, German Air Force as well. So they came. This place was chosen because there was a port here, and there was infrastructure to get to Rome.
Question: so, and the military call it soften up. So did the military soften it up with naval bombardment, aerial bombardment prior to landing, and also was the beach mine, and also was it fortified like we hear a lot about in Normandy? But was it similar?
So it was not, the sea was mined all through this area. There were some mines along the beach, but not as many as there were in France, right? Because the Germans were more afraid of a cross-channel invasion than having the time to prepare for an Italy invasion. So Italy wasn't really an occupied country until after the armistice was signed in 1943, in the fall of 43. And so it was really after that fall where the Germans really started implementing all their defenses. And so there wasn't an Atlantic wall like there was in the beaches of Normandy. But whether it was coming up towards Monte Cassino, the rivers were mined and booby-trapped, the roads were mined and booby-trapped. This area had many in the area, but not the same as what you saw in Normandy.
Was all the beach mined?
So it was. I don't know how much of it was mined, but there was a significant amount that was mined that they had to be cleared as they landed. So they did surprise the Germans when they arrived. Part of that was they didn't do like a 24-hour prep of the landing space. They did about an hour prep, if I remember correctly. And so it was less, so it was more of a surprise. And there was a German company basically that was in the area that they were able to defeat. Besides the artillery and the Air Force that responded during the landing, right? So they were more hit by artillery and by Air Force, by the Luftwaffe than they were by troops on the ground, right?
Now, I know also it's really not talked about in whether on news document, or military document, or anything like that. Now we have the technology, like I'm recording you on this iPhone, that we can get the word out. Hey, we're going to go there, we're going to bomb, get the hell out. I'm sure they didn't have that for the civilian population, whether it was Normandy or here in Anzio. So was there a lot of collateral damage, or civilians being killed?
So there was quite a bit of collateral damage here, but even before we landed here, the Germans had started moving people out of the area. And then when the Americans came, we actually evacuated whoever was still here, which were tens of thousands of people, to southern Italy.
Okay.
Right. So some of them went to Naples and further south to Calabria. Some of them went to Sicily.
I'm sorry, can I just stop you for a second?
Sure.
I know I hear taps in the background.
Yes.
Okay. Can we just take like maybe 5 seconds of silence? There's taps going on in the background, guys. Thank you. Sorry about that.
No, it's, I think for those who served and understand, TOPS can be, it is a daily thing, right? But it's also something that's very emotional because we understand when we're in a cemetery, the significance of playing TOPS. And so we hear it every day, but it is still significant every time we hear it, right? And I appreciate taking the time to pause.
Thanks, Mark. How do you say your name, Mark?
Ireland.
Mark Ireland. And what's your position here?
So I'm the superintendent here.
Okay. Well, Mark, thank you very much. And you're?
Mariska Weaver.
Can I put you here on camera?
Sure.
Okay, Mariska?
Hi, I'm the assistant superintendent here.
Okay, and you're Air Force, right?
I'm Air Force.
What would you do in the Air Force?
I was a meteorologist.
Oh, nice. Okay, thanks to you, man. I got to my location safe. Thanks to you.
Yes,
And
she spent a lot of her time with the Army.
I did spend a lot of my time with the Army.
nice. And Mark, what was your MOS or?
Sure. I worked in public health.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah, and I started out my career in Torrejon Air Base in Spain, and back in 1982.
Dad was stationed there, so I know it well.
Yeah. So, and I was there in '82, and then we deployed to Aviano Air Base, Interlake Air Base, all over Germany, Ramstein, Frankfurt, and then eventually I transitioned. I was aircraft maintenance. Working on F4s and later F-16, and then I transitioned and became a flyer. Flight engineer. So I've flown C-141s was my first aircraft. C-5 Galaxy was my second, and then the KC-10 aerial tanker was my third aircraft.
I've been on all of them.
No, we've kicked you out of our airplane many a time.
Yes. They don't like being kicked out of the airplane. I prefer to have a soft landing.
Well, Mark, it was a pleasure meeting you. Thank you so
thank
much
you
for
so
that.
much.
So much information was incredible.
Thank you so much. Are you done recording?
Yeah, and thank you again. Thank you very
If
much.
you'd like, we can